they find their eyes opened to the reality of God, whose empathy lies with the brokenhearted. Hello, I'm Matthew Gonzales, and welcome to the first episode of my movie review series. Now, the voiceover that you just heard at the beginning of this video is actually a quote by a gentleman by the name of Chris Dici. He wrote a book called Theology and Film. That quote encapsulates the power and the overall theme of today's film. And that film, it's a short film called Most. It's a poetic story of a father that has to make a horrific decision. But before I spoil it too much, why don't you go watch it for yourself? I went ahead and attached a link down below. Go ahead and head over there, get some eyes on it, and then come on back and enjoy the rest of the video. All right, let's get into it. Go. All right, so this film was actually made back in 2003, and in 2004, it was actually nominated for an Academy Award for
Best Live Action.
Ben.
What?
Up. It's their moment. It's not your moment to pout. Come on, it's the Academy Awards. It's not the Ben Stiller, I made a mistake, now everyone has to pay awards. Let's go.
It's the first really poetic film I ever really saw. I find it poetic because of the emotion. It's trying to encapsulate a memory. The film was written by a gentleman by the name of Bobby Garabedian, I hope I'm saying that right, and William Zabka.
Yeah, because the bridge doesn't open and close and the generator breaks that intimidates us.
But it was directed by only Bobby Garabedian. Bobby has mostly acting credits to his name, but lately I have noticed that he's been directing documentary films as well. And as for William Zabka, you might remember him from such films as his iconic role as the arch nemesis of Daniel LaRusso in Karate Kid. And more recently has garnered even more success in the hit Netflix series Cobra Kai.
Who is it?
In getting to the film itself, let's first of all talk about the title. And the title itself is called Most. And that's Czech, and it means, in English, it actually means bridge. It holds an element to mystery to it until you get to the climax, which I really found enjoyable. All right, now for the protagonist. The main character of this film is the dad, because we see throughout the film, it's the dad who is going through the most change, also making all the key decisions that is leading the plot forward. And in the end, in the resolution, it changes him the most. Now, let's look at the elements of the story. First up, let's talk about the hook. The filmmakers did a great job to start this film feeling very emotional in a dark kind of way. Depression, sadness, melancholy. And the question that it led me as a viewer is why? I want to know more. There's like this connection, this empathy. It sparked a feeling of curiosity. It's really interesting because the framing, the dad, he's looking out this window and then he looks up. And right when he looks up, there's this match cut. It jumps to this other space and time. The color palette has changed now from cool colors. We're now on this rooftop. You have this warmth to the colors and you have the saturation. It's more of a natural, balanced color. And now you have these two characters interacting in a very positive and lighthearted kind of mood. It's juxtaposing those two worlds, those two emotions. Now we're clearly in the setup. As it's doing this, a very clear setup question is asked.
Myslím, že na něco přijdu. Na něco přijdu, ale na co?
And so now there's a question to be answered. And the setup continues between the father and son. They're dialoguing, they're connecting. This is the main characters and this is what they're used to. This is their normalcy. But there's a key point in the midst of all of that. And the son asks him,
Mohl bych jít s tebou zítra do práce? Na most?
This is going to lead into that climax. Then the next day, the setup continues, more building on these relationships with the people of the town, with the dad and the son. But there's an expositional moment with a third character. This character is more of a minor character, but is very important to the resolution at the end. She's also very important to the overall theme of what the film is trying to say. And this third character is a girl in a red hat. She's an addict. Showing her leads into showing other characters as they're loading up onto the train. Throughout the setup, you see glimpses of each of these people's lives, and each of them have their own set of brokenness.
I want you to take your bagels and go away. I love you, but you're mad.
The setup continues until the dad picks up the son. They walk together down the tracks, and at the same time, what is called parallel editing, you see the dad and son making their way to the drawbridge, to the people on the train, until it gets to the place where they meet. That once the dad gets to the drawbridge, the son is left outside, and the dad says, "I'll be right back, stay here until I draw the bridge for this boat coming." And at that moment, the son realizes it at the same time as the dad that the train is earlier than the schedule said. So now they have a huge problem. Some people like to call it an inciting incident. I like to call it the problem, because inciting incident, it's a little more abstract. The problem is clear on this is what upsets the main characters. Normalcy, their balanced world. Now both the father and the son are trying to overcome this problem. The son jumps in action and he runs to where he knows the emergency shutoff is, and he's reaching for it. The dad is trying to figure out what to do himself, and he sees his son then fall into the machinery, where now it's an even bigger problem. And this is what's called the rising action of the story. The father sees this, and now he has a decision to make. We hit the climax when the father decides to pull the lever to save the people on the train. And at the peak of that climax, you see this beautiful sequence between the drug addict girl on the train, and you see this father who had to make the most horrifying choice in his life, and the juxtaposition between the drug addict girl and the dad. And as the film progresses downwards from that climax, you see this contrasting states of emotion between the dad, grief-stricken, and the addict girl now with a newfound hope. This part of the film is called the resolution. The film is now wrapping up that question from the beginning. I hope I find something new. And it's eye contact with that minor character, the addict girl. She is the answer to his question. The dad has this revelation, this resolution. He can now have the courage to move beyond his state, and that's where the film ends. So that sums up the story itself. Now I would like to talk a little bit about the type of story that this film is. This film specifically, I would identify as a rite of passage type of film. Film like Kramer vs. Kramer, Ordinary People. You have a main character or characters who are struggling with life's problems.
No, please.
In this case, our main character is struggling with grief. And also in these kind of stories, in the beginning of the story, it's the world that's wrong. The character's the victim. But then later on, as you progress through the climax and then the resolution, as the character changes, the character actually goes through a change within themselves. And so the world might stay the same, but they come to the realization that they need to stop and try changing the world, and they need to change themselves. This film is really strong in the use of flashback. In film school, I was always told, don't use flashback because that cliche on the nose. In this case, I think it works. The use of flashback, especially in the beginning, how they set it up, it was kind of abstract, going back and forth between present day and flashing back into the moment, with the moments with him and his son, with the snow moving in reverse from the smokestacks, the vapor moving in reverse. In the very start of the film, when the father and son are on the rooftop, they're dialoguing, the dad asks a question, so who is thinking of you now? And the son says, you are. I thought this was brilliant because the son is in that moment in the main character's mind and heart. When the dad asks, well, who's thinking of you now? The dad is actually thinking back to this moment, is actually thinking about the son in that moment. I thought that was a really creative use of the flashback and the dialogue that they were having. And also, this is a really good example of writing your script with the end in mind. Let us now discuss the cinematography. The cinematography camera-wise, camera movements were very controlled. Cinematography was never really shaky cam or anything. Even in the most brutal moments in the film, everything was very controlled. And the camera really only moved with the movements of the actors. It was motivated by either their emotion or their physical movement throughout the film. One perfect example of what I'm talking about on this note is found in 9 minutes and 30 seconds. The film introduces a scene between the drug addict girl and her sister, and as they're talking, the way the camera moves between them, it shows the master, and then you have the two, their close-ups, the over the shoulders and going between the two. The way that the camera moves there really draws out a type of emotion. It communicates a separation between those two characters, that there's something divisive happening. And even at the way that scene ends, the sister, it's over her shoulder looking at the drug addict character. As she turns and walks away, she's walking out of focus, and in the foreground, the sister is the one in focus. It really communicated that she's walking into distortion, and the sister is in normalcy. She's in a healthy place. All in all, this is a remarkable modern-day parable telling the redemptive story of sacrifice and grace. And it just like with parables, we should take it and learn from it and take to heart the message. And that is that no matter your brokenness, that there is a divine spiritual father who did exactly what this main character did by giving his only son so that we can have a bridge back to him. So that wraps up the first episode of Matthew's Movie Reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you can take a couple of nuggets with you from this video. And if you liked it, please share it, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.